The diner sat quietly on the edge of Highway 43, its neon sign flickering against the dusky sky like a heartbeat. It was the kind of place that had seen too many lonely truckers, too many late-night confessions, and far too few good stories. Inside, the warm yellow lights buzzed low, casting elongated shadows across the checkered floor. The clink of a spoon against ceramic was the loudest sound in the room. Jake Reynolds pushed open the door and entered, his boots making soft thuds on the worn linoleum. The former Marine was on his way home from a long week of job hunting. He had just come from yet another, fruitless interview in a nearby town. His body was sore, but his instincts were sharp as ever. It was the kind of awareness he hadn't learned in training. It had been carved into him during 3 deployments and years of post-service adjustment. He took a seat at the corner table near the window, nodding politely to the elderly waitress who slid over a menu without asking. "Coffee?" she asked, pen poised. "Yeah," Jake said. "Black." He stared out the window, watching the last of the day fade behind the silhouette of pine trees. Something about this place made him feel calm yet oddly alert. That sixth sense, the one that had saved him more than once in Afghanistan, flickered faintly in his gut. When the waitress returned with the coffee, Jake's eyes shifted inside the diner. Just 3 tables down, almost hidden by a pillar, sat a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old. She sat in silence, knees pulled to her chest, tiny fingers tracing the rim of an untouched chocolate milk. Her dark hair was pulled into 2 low pigtails, and she wore a Minnie Mouse hoodie too large for her petite frame. Jake's brows furrowed. Where were her parents? At first he thought maybe they were in the restroom. But 5 minutes passed, then 10. The waitress didn't approach her. No one acknowledged her, and still the girl just sat. That uneasy instinct inside Jake sharpened. He noticed her eyes. They were darting, not at people but at corners, doors, the outside. Not curious eyes, alert, worried, like a tiny prey animal in a field full of threats. Jake leaned forward slightly, glancing around. 2 older men were seated at the counter, talking low about something on the news. A young couple laughed in the back booth. A trucker sat by the jukebox, scrolling on his phone. No one else seemed to notice her. That's when Jake caught it, a fleeting flicker of terror in the girl's expression, as the front door opened. A man stepped in, gruff, probably in his early 40s, with scruffy hair and a face like stone. The girl stiffened immediately. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just stared straight ahead like she'd disappeared inside herself. The man looked around, spotted her, and walked to the counter. He didn't even glance at her. Jake leaned toward the waitress as she passed. "Hey, that girl over there, she with anyone?" The waitress followed his nod. "Oh, that one? Nah, she's been sitting there a while. I figured her parents were outside or something, but no one's claimed her." "You think something's wrong?" Jake was already standing. "I'll check." He approached slowly, crouching slightly so he didn't seem threatening. The girl didn't flinch but didn't respond either. "Hey there, kiddo," he said softly. "You okay?" She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Her eyes were huge. Then she whispered something barely audible. Jake leaned in. "What was that?" "They said not to talk to anyone." Jake's gut clenched. "Who said that?" She didn't reply, just shook her head and dropped her gaze. Jake followed her eyes and saw the small bruise under her sleeve. The man at the counter noticed Jake now. His eyes narrowed. Jake stood up. "Is this your daughter?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. The man's lips twitched. "She's mine. Thanks for watching her." "Name?" "What? What's her name?" Jake said louder now. The diner fell quiet. The couple stopped laughing. Even the jukebox stopped mid-song. The man's eyes darted. "Emily." Jake turned back to the girl. "Is that your name?" She shook her head. The man moved quickly. "Listen, pal, she's had a rough day." Jake stepped between him and the girl. "Sit down. You don't tell me what to do." "I do if you're hurting a child." The man's hand twitched near his jacket pocket. Jake didn't wait. With a single practiced motion, he pushed the man back against the counter, wrist twisted behind his back. The trucker stood up. So did the couple. Jake pulled the man's wallet from his jacket and tossed it to the waitress. "Call 911 now." The girl whimpered behind him. Jake glanced back. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe." The police arrived minutes later. The man was arrested for abduction. It turned out the girl had been missing for 2 weeks. Her mother had gone to work one night and never come home. The man, her mother's ex-boyfriend, had taken the child from a neighbor's house and driven across 3 states. Jake sat in the booth as the officers gently led the girl away to paramedics waiting outside. She looked back at him, her small hand waving slightly. Her eyes weren't scared anymore. They were thankful. The officer turned to Jake. "You former military?" "Marine," Jake said. "Well, Marine, you just saved that little girl's life." Jake didn't reply. He simply nodded and sipped his now cold coffee. It was bitter, but not nearly as bitter as the world. He'd just glimpsed behind the girl's eyes. Sometimes being a hero didn't look like charging into danger or taking a bullet. Sometimes it was just not looking away. And on that quiet night, in a tired old diner on the side of a forgotten highway, a little girl's silent cry had been heard. Because one man saw what no one else would.